Here we
And
go.
so here we are, Terry and Simone and Dorothy
Yeah.
on
Three ancient
semi-enlightened broads.
Choosing on Reiki.
Maybe Terry doesn't want to be referred to as an ancient semi-enlightened broad.
Yeah. I think she can handle it.
I think she can.
It's fun to be together.
And so Reiki is Terry Attwood's middle name.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Pretty much.
Yeah. And Simone, let's let Terry introduce herself a little bit.
Okay.
Well, like Dorothy said, I'm Terry Attwood. I am a Reiki Master. I also do meditation groups and hypnotherapy. And let's see, I've been around a long time. I think I started in 1980 with Reiki and in 1984 with hypnotherapy. So the three of us go back a long way together because we were all at the hypnotherapy school at the same time.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah, so that's our long-term connection. So what do you want to know?
Well, I think we have such a varied audience. I think there are people that are probably Reiki masters watching this and people that are interested in Reiki, but I think there are a lot of people that don't know what the heck Reiki is.
Yeah.
Why don't we start there?
Yeah, good idea. Well, Reiki is a Japanese form of healing. It originated, actually, let me back up a little bit. What Reiki is a form around healing energy that comes into the universe at all times. And it was brought to us back in the late 1800s, I think it was, with Dr. Usui, who was a Japanese Buddhist. And some say he was a doctor, and the history is a little murky. But he is referred to as Dr. Usui. And he had spent his life, most of his adult life, working just working like everybody. But in his youth, he had been involved in martial arts. And it occurred to him back then that there must be a way to use that energy to heal. And so what happened somewhere along the line, he lost his job or he retired. And that's when he decided he would start searching that. Now, this is the oral tradition. Some of the information that's come out since then, where people have done research, some of this story is a little fanciful, but I'm going to kind of bring it down a bit. What happened ultimately is, after searching many, many types of healing arts, he had his own experience in a long-term meditation he did on Mount Karuna. And then he knew he was now able, he could tell that he had the energy that we call Reiki now. He did not call it Reiki, that came later. And he just incorporated it into his Buddhist teachings. So when a group came together to meditate, they also received Reiki from him. Long story short, one of his Reiki masters, and he didn't call them masters then either, one of his Reiki people who was advanced, after he died, Dr. Hayashi carried it forward. He's not the only one who carried it forward, but he's the one in our lineage that carried it forward, the one that we go back to here in America. And he ultimately encountered Hawayo Takata when she went from Hawaii to Japan because she was ill and her husband had died, and she knew she needed to go home and her parents would take care of the children, and she was supposed to have surgery. So Hawayo Takata gets there, and she's in the room being prepared for surgery, and she hears a voice, and she's psychic. She hears a voice that says, "There's another way," and she goes, "Oh." And the voice gets very insistent, and 3 times it tells her there's another way. So she finally asks the nurse that comes in, and she said, "Oh yes, there's a natural healing center over the other side of town." So she gets off the table and she says, "I'm going there." And so she did, and she met Dr. Hayashi, and she was ultimately cleared of all that was wrong with her without having to do surgery. So she was pretty excited, and she wanted to become a Reiki practitioner, but that wasn't acceptable in Japan at the time because she didn't live in Japan. She lived in Hawaii, and Japan did not want to release its rituals and its secrets out to the other rest of the world. So she was now I met her. This is how I know this story is directly from her mouth. She taught me my first degree of Reiki. What came from that was from her experience with Dr. Hayashi, is when he said that she couldn't become a Reiki person, she thought, who would he be impressed enough by to give me permission to become a Reiki person? So she thinks, aha, I will go to the surgeon who's so amazed at how healed I am. And so that's how she got to be trained by Dr. Hayashi. She then eventually moved back to Hawaii, opened her own healing, worked with people, actually went into their homes at first and stayed with them, and then ultimately had a healing center on Hilo. So then the war comes and everything goes underground, including Dr. Hayashi's work. And after the war, American tourists started coming to Hawaii a lot. And somehow or another, one or two of them discovered her through people they knew. Ultimately, they were school teachers, and they had summers off. So they brought her here, and that's how Reiki came to the United States on the mainland.
Mhm.
So how I met her is I had been in I'd gone to just hear a concert in a metaphysical church. And before the concert, the minister came out. It was a woman minister, and she did a meditation. And that meditation was something I'd done 100,000 times. It was a meditation in the group I belonged to. We did all the time. But when this woman did it, my spine went zing, and all kinds of energy started flowing out. And it wasn't like a band of energy. It was like little filaments of energy that went out through my body horizontally, which I was fascinated with. Because I thought, in terms of prayer and meditation, it all goes up at that time. This was my thought form. So I felt it, and it was a beautiful experience. So I said to them after the concert, what goes on here? And they told me it's a Reiki healing center. It's a Japanese healing art, blah, 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 blah. Well, I went back 2 or 3 times, but the woman who did that meditation was never there again. And the woman who was running it, I didn't resonate with. So I just sort of, And then about 6 months later, somebody told me that Reiki was being taught by the Grand Master of Reiki in Palo Alto. So I went with a bunch of my friends, and it was Hawayo Takata. So I had the great privilege of having been formally attuned by her, even though I had a spontaneous attunement ahead of time. So that's how I got into Reiki. Long story. I took second degree. I did find the woman who'd done the meditation and took second degree from her. And then I finally got my master's degree years later. When my daughter lived out in the valley, and when I went out to visit her, I would visit my niece who was suffering from cancer, and I would give her treatment. And I said to my daughter, we've got to find a Reiki person here in the Modesto area. So she researched and found somebody. And the person I found had been trained under Iris Ishikuro, who was also connected directly to Takata. So the lineage has stayed pretty strong, if lineage is important to you. Some people it's very important to, others they don't care. Anyway, that's how I became a Reiki master, and I started teaching in 1991. So I worked as a practitioner till 90, 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking of all the people you've treated.
Oh my word!
For the years, and all the students, and all the different backgrounds of people that have come to you.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating career, really.
I mean, really,
I don't call it a career.
the different ways you've worked with healing with people, Terry. It's amazing.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've worked. I spent a period of time, a number of years, working with cancer patients. Not because I went and sought it, but just because that's what came. I've always worked with what comes to me magnetically rather than try to go out and make it happen so much. So yeah, I've had my experiences with it, and some have been really astoundingly wonderful, and some have been interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's any one particular case or client that you've worked with that still resonates with you, sticks in your mind.
Yeah, well, there's quite a few, but one that pops in quickly was one of the first clients I had was a cancer patient. And the thing is that I didn't even have a table yet. So I had her on the couch and I would kneel on the floor and work on her. And, there was no training in things like projection and taking on people's stuff and all of that. And so I was just doing it because I was now a Reiki person. So I'm working on this person and I'm getting more and more nauseous and I'm feeling awful. I'm going to have to stop. And so I just take my hands off for a minute and take a breath. And I get that I'm picking up her chemotherapy reaction.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And so, she and I then started talking about things like that. And that progressed, and she went into remission, but it didn't hold. And the amazing part of that story is not all Reiki, but when she was in the hospital at the terminal end of her Reiki trip, she had a heart attack, and she had told them no reviving her, and they did. And she was in the intensive care, and I went in, and she was so pissed. And so I said, well, but this gives you an opportunity to say goodbye to everybody. And so she saw that, and she said, okay. So her family everybody came in one by one because she's in ICU. And she really did get to say goodbye to everyone. So that night, she's now put into a regular room. Mm. And this may have been the next day. And she asked if I would stay. I'd been there, and she said, could you stay with me? I know I'm crossing over. And this is where the unbelievable blessing of being open to this field is. Her minister and I are there. We are two different purposes. He's there helping her through the prayers that are familiar to her, and I'm there doing the guided visualization to get her to be comfortable leaving the body. And so at 11 o'clock or so, the shift is changing. So the nurses came in and said, would you please stay long enough for the shift to change so no mistake gets made tonight, that they don't try to pull her back for the oncoming shift. So we did. And the ultimate thing is that we were in this room not thinking anything was unusual. And all of a sudden, we know she's going. And so I actually saw a beam of light, a really huge beam of light, it's bigger than her body. I saw her ride out on it. I didn't see it come in, but I saw it withdraw. I hadn't even noticed it. And everybody was in tears, even the nurses. It was the most beautiful experience of a leave taking. That's of all I've ever experienced. But the whole time, when she left, what I realized was once she was gone, the room had been golden all night. We didn't realize it. When she was gone, it was gray. It was like the hospital walls. We had been in this huge beam of light that whole night. That was very moving. Oh, and that's what really set me on the path of wanting to be able to teach Reiki. When you can connect to something like that.
Terry, do you think you could talk a little bit about the process of what happens with you when you do Reiki? In other words, where you go or what your experience is a little bit about that.
Anywhere. I'm really very present.
Okay.
But it's more like it expands. The sense is that the Reiki channel is like this, and what Mrs. Takata said is when you start Reiki, you go Reiki on, like you turn the switch on. So when the switch goes on, it moves out. And it starts flowing out of my hands. And I feel expanded. I kind of lose sense of my body, but I don't go out of body. I'm aware of the field instead. That's how it works for me.
How long did it take you to get to a place where you understood that part?
A long, long time. Yeah. In the beginning, it was all more, I would say it's not that it was mental, but it was more in my head, like I'm thinking a lot. And then it just started evolving over the years to just trusting the hands, trusting where my hands wanted to go,
To let it be.
trusting what I was getting in my heart space, you know. Like sometimes you'll put your hands on the head and you immediately know you got to start at their feet, but you don't know how you know that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if a person is more psychic than I am, they can see. I don't. I sense. So there's clairsentient, clairvoyance, and clair
Audience.
Yeah, and I'm clairsentient, not clairvoyant. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I know that I've heard you talk about that before, but it seems so long ago now.
Well, it was. That was probably in 92 or 93.
Right. When you were just a kid.
When I was just a kid with Reiki.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated, Terry, when I communicate with you and I say, "Oh, I'm not feeling that well," and you go, let me send you some Reiki.
Yeah.
Can you maybe talk about remote healing through Reiki?
That took me a long time to trust.
Yeah.
Even though other people were saying they were getting it, it was like I couldn't see it, sense it, or feel it going. But I had enough people say things, like, "Wow, that Reiki you sent really helped me," that I just began trusting it. I don't have a sensation when I'm sending it in the same way that when I'm working.
Yeah, I think it's about intention.
It's totally about intention. Yeah, that's what I came to, is your intention moves on your consciousness and it moves on the Reiki Ray.
Yeah.
So, it's a really good teaching. You don't have to be all ego about it. You just have to let that go and let it move, because it's more intelligent than you are.
I think the minute that it becomes ego, it becomes less.
Yeah.
It has less potential because it's limited by what you think it can do.
Yeah.
Among other things. But yeah, it's an amazing experience. And I will say that the frequency that I felt Reiki at when I first worked is very, very different now. The frequency of it has changed a lot, whether that's because of my growth over the years or whether Reiki itself has expanded. I'm not sure.
Maybe both.
A little bit
Maybe
of both.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very different.
I do think that whatever we do, after we've done it for a while, it's just, we don't have to think about it anymore. We just do it, or we just say it. I mean, how many times have all of us been teaching and we're saying things, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I will say, "Oh, wait, I have to write that down. I've never said that before."
Or you say, "What was it I just said?"
or
Yeah, it just comes out. Yeah.
I say that because I want to be sure you're listening when I have no clue what I just said.
Good idea. Yeah. Well, I think the more we just accept who we are, the easier everything becomes. So we don't have to prove anything to anyone.
That's right.
In Reiki, I don't have to prove it. The person experiences it or they don't.
Right.
And I will say, in all of the people I've worked with, I've only had 2 people ever get off the table and say they didn't feel anything. Even the ones who are super skeptical. "Oh, I can never relax. You'll never." By the end, they go, "What just happened?"
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I can speak to so many times I've been on the table with you, and it's like butter. It's like it's like warm healing light just going down into the cells, and I go away into this place of complete nirvana.
If we wanted to get into the science of it, it has to do with all the systems of the body, and it's relaxing all the systems of the body. But overall, you don't really need to do that. If that's your thing, you can. Any other questions?
Well, I'm interested in where Reiki has taken you in your spiritual journey in life. How has it opened doors to other things? Because I know you teach meditation, and you're a counselor, and you're a hypnotherapist, and
okay. So yes, I do feel that Reiki is one expression of the light that we carry. If you are attuned to it, you can channel it. People can channel healing energy with or without Reiki, but Reiki gives you a form and a practice. It helps you understand it's something that moves through you. You don't have to effort.
Yeah.
And so, and you begin to trust it, and that is what sends you on the spiritual journey too, because here's this energy running through you, and you have nothing to do with it except to be the channel of it. So, you learn to stop being self-conscious about it. Yeah.
Now, Terry, did you study meditation before you did before you went into Reiki, right?
Not really.
Oh.
I didn't. How did I get we used to do meditation when I was involved in Creative Initiative Foundation. There was no system taught. We just would do guided visualization and for spiritual reasons. And so I just took that with me. And in fact, I had a friend in the hospital, and I had another friend there too. And I was doing hypnotherapy, not Reiki, and Reiki together. But I mean, I was doing a thing. And I was actually doing guided visualization. She says to me, "You're doing hypnotherapy." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm just doing guided visualization." She says, "Terry, listen to me." She said, "You need to go and get a hypnotherapy certification, because what you're doing with your Reiki is hypnotherapy, and it'll give you a legitimacy, and you'll gain more depth." And so I went and interviewed on the phone several hypnotherapy schools, and had this great conversation with Josie Hadley, who was then the director of the school, and said, "Oh, she's the one." And so I got into it through that. Yeah. But the meditation itself just came out of that guided visualization. And as I became more and more aware, at a certain level, as you take somebody down, you're at the meditative state, and then you go down into the hypnagogic state. And that is a very powerful way to work with people. So when I have them on the table, especially for new, I will do that. I'll do guided visualization to get them out of their heads. We're all in our heads, right? Mm-hmm. I have a great mind that worries a lot, and I have to learn to just tell it, just go into the Reiki channel. I'm not going to give you power. Right. And so that's how everything evolved, and that's when I started the meditation group, was realizing that was powerful. And
it isn't anything you could teach online, is it?
You could, but I don't want to, because the in-person is where so much happens. Mm-hmm. You could teach it online, and people do. You can even transmit the attunement. Reiki, by the way, is, because it's of a Japanese background. So I think that the one-on-one, the connection it's such a rich experience. I don't want to teach it online. I could teach it up to the attunement process. So, I just go with whatever comes. So.
Yeah, I think your people, so to speak, that are meant to find you, like with myself and Terry. Dorothy, that's the same with you too, right?
Yes.
Word of mouth has always been the way things have mostly progressed.
Well, remember we had that radio show.
God, yes.
In San Francisco for how many years? I don't know. It was a long time. We had a great time though.
Oh, it was something else. I tell people that story all the time about how we were on the radio. What was the name of it? The Healing Circle or something?
Inside the Healing Circle.
Inside the Healing Circle, yeah. Dorothy's doing readings and Simone's doing readings, and I get on. All they want to do is have me do readings, and I don't do readings. But the funniest thing that happened with that was when our first time to go, remember, and the studio had a fire the night before. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We had to walk up the street and do it in some little room. Yeah. And I was an absolute basket case. I don't know why. When I look back, I think it came out of my belief systems that had been reinforced as a youngster. So anyway, the first time that we're to pair up, Simone is going to interview me, or I think you interviewed me.
Yeah.
And so when it was over, and Simone was just it was wonderful. And I said, well, you were really good. And she says, oh, Terry. And she takes the little recorded tape, shoves it in the car. And I hear this very articulate woman who I had never met.
You were a ham. You were incredible.
I mean, it was one, you know, when you have those breakthroughs of a conditioned way.
It was a Star is Born. It
Yeah,
was
it was
incredible.
amazing. That was
But don't you remember, Terry, what I said to you when you were so nervous?
no.
We were on KEST.
Yeah.
And I said, don't worry, there's only one person listening.
Oh, we had such
It was great all those years. It was really
It
such
was.
a treat.
Truly, that year that we were on the radio and every time we went, I think we laughed more than we did anything.
It was so hysterical. The whole thing was just so great. It was-
Well, it really, you know, it was one of those things where somebody has a self-view that no one else has but them,
yes.
and then they get it. Well, I got it.
You got it, girl. You
Yeah,
did
thank
it.
you, Simone.
You're a riot. You are a riot.
Well,
So-
I had grown up in a family where I said I want to go to college, and my father says, "What for? You're a girl." And
Yeah.
so then I'm running around with all these people who have college degrees, and I'm feeling really dumb and inferior. And then that, you know, not terribly bad. I mean, I had good self-esteem, but not in presenting myself to the public. And so that cured that, just boom, like that.
I'm a firm believer that genius has nothing to do with education.
I do believe that now.
I believe for myself, if I had really not had that ADD and all the other stuff that I had running, that I probably would have followed a very different path.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't have been so open to my rebellious nature and my own inability to learn science and history. And I mean, and mathematics, I flunked all those things. I did okay in English and French and
I
poetry.
work in English, yeah.
You know what I mean, though? I mean, it's like I'm grateful in a way that yeah, I did go to college and all of that, but it was in poetry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so all those things, I think, you know, we're being led the whole time, even though it
So
feels
yeah,
so
from where
weird.
I sit now and as an octogenarian, yes, definitely.
Octogenarian, don't let those words come from your mouth.
Woohoo! I've never used that really. I mean, I've never heard that used as a noun before. It's very interesting.
Oh yeah. I hear, well, up here we all are, you know, many of us. But
I guess I'm a septuagenarian. Okay.
Yes. You're just a child.
we are who we are, and that's fine.
So Terry, what if somebody wants to, because I keep meeting people in the readings I'm doing, et cetera, with people that want to study Reiki and whatever.
Well, like I said, I haven't taught recently. I do, well, we can't teach now.
Yeah.
We do it online, you know. And I have about 4 people
Yeah.
up here who want first degree, which I will do when we're out of this COVID thing.
You know, let me say, Terry, that I have never wanted to teach online.
Mm-hmm.
But during this period of time, I realized that if people want to learn from me,
Yeah, I don't
then
know.
the only way I can do it is online. So I'm developing a class for the 101, Hypnotherapy 101, to
Great.
teach online. And
Yeah, I think that's great. Like I said, I could teach Reiki online, but I would not want to not do the attunement in person.
But you do have a meditation series online.
Yeah, no, let's say I don't want to teach Reiki online.
Terry does these incredibly beautiful guided imagery meditations, and I really highly recommend them. They're just gorgeous. They're luscious.
Yeah,
Love you.
love you too. Love you guys.
Thank you so
Miss you
much.
guys. We gotta find a way to connect.
I think we should all meet in Hawaii. That would be my.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
We could all meet over there.
tomorrow,
Yeah,
Well, look, we did that when you got married.
yeah.
I
You do
remember it
again.
well.
We had a blast.
Let's do it again.
Okay.
Get married?
Uh,
Oh, hey, I've been married. This week I celebrated my 61st wedding anniversary.
wow.
I know.
Congratulations.
God.
And I'm hardly even 61 yet.
Yeah, there you go. How's that possible?
None of it means anything anyway.
Yeah.
None of those numbers.
Nothing means
No.
nothing.
And one of our things, Dorothy and I were talking about how young we felt inside. I said 45 or 42. What did you say, Dot?
54.
54. What do you feel like inside, Terry?
I in my 50s. But
Yeah.
I can't, it's hard to say that since my kids are teetering on 60. I feel, like 55 or so.
Yeah. Well, we're youthful, inspired beings. What can I say? Bringing light in.
Semi-enlightened.
That's
I
us.
say we're semi-enlightened because we're still alive,
Yeah.
Right.
still learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So we're going to say goodbye for the moment, and I'm going to have both of you smile and wave.
Oh.